I moved into the boarding house 2 months ago. A small, crumbling building at the edge of town, 3 floors, 6 rooms, and hallways that creaked louder than my footsteps. It was cheap and quiet, and the landlord didn't ask many questions. Exactly what I needed. My room was on the 2nd floor. Room 3. Room 2 was right next to mine. The door was always shut and locked. The first night I stayed there, I asked the landlord about it. He just shrugged and said, "Used to be a tenant. Moved out. I keep it closed now." I didn't press. Old buildings have old stories, and I was just trying to sleep. For the first few weeks, things were fine. I didn't hear much from the other tenants. The walls were thick and most of them kept to themselves. Except for the occasional soft steps above me, the buzz of someone cooking late at night, and the wind. There was always wind, even when the trees outside were still. Then came the rain. Long, cold, nighttime rains that seemed to last for hours. And during one of those nights, I heard singing. It was faint, almost beautiful, a low humming voice, soft and distant, like a lullaby wrapped in fog. At first I thought it was from the radio. I paused, listened closely, but it didn't fade like a song would. It stayed, gentle, repetitive, coming from the other side of the wall. From room 2, I knocked on the wall lightly. The singing stopped. I waited. Nothing. The next morning I checked the hallway. The door to room 2 was still shut, still locked. Same old rusted padlock on the outside. I told myself it was just sound traveling strangely. Maybe someone upstairs. Maybe the pipes. But the next night, the voice came again. Same time, around 2 a.m., when the rain fell hardest. And this time, the voice was clearer. It was a woman. She was singing something slow, almost like a children's rhyme, but not in English. Maybe something Slavic, or older. And this time I didn't knock. I just listened. There was something soothing about it, even though, deep down, I knew no one should be in that room. The singing returned every night that week, always at 2 a.m., always when it rained, and always from behind that locked door, until Friday. Friday night, the voice didn't come. Instead, I heard footsteps in the hallway, soft, barefoot, pacing, back and forth, just outside my door. Then, a knock, not loud, not urgent, just one single, solid knock. I didn't move. I held my breath. I stared at the door, watching the crack of light beneath it. Nothing. No shadow. No whisper. No second knock. Just silence. And rain. The next morning I opened my door. The hallway was empty. Except the lock on room 2 was gone. And the door was open. Just a crack. The door was open. Not wide. Just a crack. Like someone had peeked out and forgot to shut it again. I stood in the hallway for what felt like a full minute. No one else was around. No sound except the distant drip of rain hitting the stairwell window, and that faint hum. Not singing, just a low vibration in the air, like memory clinging to a room. I pushed the door. It creaked. Of course it creaked. Everything in this house did. The room inside was dusty. That was the first thing I noticed. Not cobwebs, just layers of stillness. Everything was coated in that soft, undisturbed gray that takes months, maybe years to form. There was no bed, no chair, just a small wooden dresser pushed against the wall and a cracked mirror hanging above it. The floor was bare, no rugs, no signs of anyone ever living here, except one thing. In the middle of the room was a rocking chair. It didn't match the rest of the place. Plain, old-fashioned, dark polished wood. It faced the wall away from me, and there was something on it. A shawl, delicately folded over the backrest. Lacework, hand-stitched, not dusty, fresh. I stepped inside. The smell hit me. Not rot, not mold, lilac, soft and faint. The kind of scent that only exists in a memory. I moved slowly, every floorboard groaning under my weight. I reached the dresser first. The top drawer was locked. The second was empty. The third held a single item, an old music box. I lifted it. It didn't feel dusty. No grime. Just one. I turned the key on the bottom once. It clicked, then clicked again, then stopped. I set it down. It didn't play. That's when the rocking chair moved. Just once. A short, subtle shift, as if someone had stood up a moment ago. I stared at it, froze. My heart wasn't racing. Not yet. It was waiting for something to feel wrong. Then I saw it. On the far wall, where the chair had been facing, was a drawing, scratched into the paint. Not a painting, not pencil, scratched. Deep enough to dig through the layers of white, brown, and green beneath was a shape, a figure, a woman maybe, long hair, arms outstretched, mouth open, not singing, screaming. Underneath, in the same scratched lines, were words, not English, but familiar. I reached out, running my fingers along them, and then I heard it, behind me, a soft breath. I turned around. The mirror. For the first time I realized. It reflected nothing. No dresser. No chair. Not even me. Just a blank, soft gray. Like fog trapped behind the glass. Then, something moved. Not me. Not in the room. Inside the mirror. The shape. Well, standing still. Watching. I took a step back. And the door behind me, the one I'd entered through, slowly creaked shut. Click. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just listened. And from somewhere inside the mirror, from beyond that fog, she began to sing. The song was not loud. It drifted in like a breeze through a barely open window. Soft, familiar, but not quite human. Her voice wasn't singing lyrics, not words I understood, just sound. Long notes that rose and fell like tides or memory or grief. I stood in that dusty room in front of the mirror that didn't reflect me, listening. It was strange. I wasn't afraid. I should have been. I knew that. But there was something in the song. Something that wrapped around me, held me, not tight, not with force, but with sorrow. I whispered, "Who are you?" And to my surprise, she answered, not with words, but the fog inside the mirror shifted. Shapes moved. I saw a hallway not mine, older, wider, with faded floral wallpaper and candle sconces on the walls. A boarding house, maybe this same one but from decades ago. And there she was, a woman in white, hair tied back, shawl wrapped around her shoulders. She stood outside a door, knocking. One soft knock, then waiting. Inside, a baby cried. A voice, a man's, shouted something I couldn't hear. She knocked again, then again. Then she stepped back, and the door never opened. The image changed. Now she was sitting on the floor, holding something in her arms. A blanket, wrapped around nothing. She rocked back and forth, sang the same song. Tears on her face. Then, she faded. The fog thickened, and I saw myself, standing there in that room watching. But I wasn't moving, just staring into the mirror, expressionless, like I had always been there, like I had been watching too long. I blinked, stepped back, and this time my reflection moved with me. The mirror was normal again. I turned and walked to the door. It opened easily. No lock, no resistance. The hallway outside was quiet, still raining. I stepped out, closed the door behind me, and when I looked back, it was locked again. Later that night, I asked the landlord about the room. He sighed, looked tired, said the room had belonged to a woman named Lydia. She had lost a child. No one knew how. She stayed for months after, silent, soft, broken, sang the same lullaby every night, until one day, she disappeared. No one saw her leave, but her rocking chair remained. He paused, then added something that stayed with me. People say she never really left, just moved into the mirror, keeps singing, hoping someone still hears her. I moved out a week later. I don't play music at night anymore, not when it rains, not at 2 a.m., and sometimes in hotels, in new apartments, even walking past dark windows late at night. I hear it again, just barely. The same song, the same voice, calling through the glass, still waiting, still singing. I moved into that house during a strange time in my life. Not bad exactly, just quiet. Like everything had slowed down a little more than I expected. It was a short-term rental, furnished, old but comfortable in the way old things sometimes are. The street was narrow, more like an alley really. Only a few houses, and mine was the last on the left. At the very end, where the pavement turned to gravel and street lights didn't quite reach. Across the alley, maybe 10 feet away, was another house. It looked empty. Windows shut, blinds drawn, paint peeling from the siding like dead skin. There were no lights, no car, no mailbox. And something about it, something I couldn't quite name, felt like it had been that way for a long, long time. The landlord said nothing about it, didn't mention neighbors at all. Just handed me the keys, gave me a tired smile, and said, "Quiet street, You'll sleep well here. The first few nights I did. Nothing unusual. Just the creak of the house settling, the wind catching on the gutters, and the occasional rustle of stray cats outside. But on the fourth night, I woke up. 2:17 a.m. No sound. No reason. Just wide awake. I sat up, disoriented. And that's when I saw her. The window in my bedroom faces the alley. And directly across, just beyond the glass, is the upper floor window of the house opposite. She was standing there, perfectly still, perfectly silent. A little girl, maybe 8 or 9, wearing a pale dress, long straight hair. She wasn't moving, just watching me, through the glass, from the dark. My breath caught. I blinked. She was still there. No expression, no gesture, just eyes, watching. I told myself I was dreaming, that I'd fallen asleep upright and this was part of it. But I didn't move, not for a full minute. And then, she turned. Not quickly, not dramatically, just turned. And disappeared into the darkness of her room. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning I crossed the alley. I don't know why, maybe just to prove something to myself. I walked up to the porch. The steps groaned beneath my feet. The air smelled stale, like wood and dust and time. I knocked, waited, knocked again. Nothing. The windows were dusty, but I could see through them just enough to tell. The house was empty. No furniture, no curtains, no movement, just light and shadow. I tried the door. It didn't budge. Walked. I even walked around the side to look through the backyard windows. Same thing. Empty. I went back inside my place, made coffee, tried to forget about it, and I did, mostly, until the next night, 2:14 a.m. I woke up again. No reason, no sound, just a cold feeling under my skin. I looked toward the window. She was there. Same girl, same dress, same silence, watching. But this time, she was smiling. She was smiling. That's what changed everything. Because a stare could be accidental, a trick of the light, the imagination of a restless mind at 2 a.m. But a smile, that was intentional. I sat frozen in my bed, blanket pulled up without realizing, eyes locked to hers through 2 panes of cold glass. The corners of her lips were turned up just slightly, not playful, not kind, just enough to say, "I know you see me." And then she disappeared, not stepped away, just gone, like she had been pulled back into the shadows behind her, like a switch had been flipped. No movement, no warning. This time I got out of bed. I turned on the lights, paced my room, checked the window 3 more times. Nothing. Across the alley, the window was just a window. Dark, empty. So, the next day, I told myself again that I'd imagined it. Lack of sleep, old neighborhood, overactive imagination. I didn't cross the alley that morning. I didn't want to, but something had shifted. That night, I didn't fall asleep easily. I kept the lights on longer, checked the window before lying down. It was empty, and for a while I started to relax, until I heard the whisper. It wasn't loud, and it didn't come from outside. It came from inside the room, from the corner near the closet. A girl's voice, singing, just a few notes, soft, broken syllables, like a child humming to herself in the dark. I turned on the lamp beside me. Nothing there. The sound stopped instantly. I didn't sleep that night. The following evening, just before sundown, I went across the alley again. I stood in front of the old house. Its silence felt heavier than before. I didn't knock. I didn't look through the windows. I just stood there, trying to feel whether someone or something was inside. I stayed there a long time, too long, until I felt a chill behind me, like breath on the back of my neck. I turned quickly. No one. But when I looked back at the house, the upstairs window was open. I'm sure it had been shut. I would have noticed, would have remembered, but now it was open just slightly. The curtain inside barely moved, though the air outside was still. That night I closed my blinds, tightly. I locked my bedroom door even though I lived alone. I left the lights on again, and again. I heard her. This time she was closer. No singing, just breathing. Not steady, not relaxed, like someone crying quietly, trying not to make a sound. I pulled the blanket to my ears. I didn't move. Eventually I drifted off. At 3:11 a.m. I woke up. Cold. Not inside. Not in my body. Cold air. Moving across my feet. Like something had opened. I sat up. The window blinds were open. And the window was unlocked. I didn't open the window. I was sure of it. But there it was. Unlocked. Blinds pulled to the side. Letting in the cold. Letting in something. I got up slowly, carefully. My heart wasn't racing. It was slow, heavy, like it was listening for something. I walked to the window, closed it, and latched the lock. I didn't look across the alley. I didn't want to. Not yet. I went to the kitchen. Made tea. Held the mug with both hands even though it was too hot. I stayed there until the sun began to rise. And when I finally dared to look back out the window, the house across the alley was still. Its window was closed again. Curtains drawn. As if nothing had ever happened. That day I didn't leave the house. Didn't check the mail. Didn't respond to messages. I didn't feel afraid. I felt watched. Like if I did anything out of the ordinary, I would wake something up. Something that preferred I stay quiet. Night came faster than I wanted. I closed every blind. Checked every lock. Slept with the hallway light on this time. But I didn't make it to sleep. Because at 1:42 a.m., there was a sound. Not outside. Inside. A soft knock. Not at the door. Not on the wall. On the closet. I sat up. The knock came again. 3 times. Soft. Polite. Rhythmic. I stared at the closet door. It hadn't been opened since I moved in. Still had the original bronze latch on it. Stuck the first few days. I stood. Crossed the room. Placed my ear against the wood. Silence. And then, from the other side, a voice. Faint. Childlike. Just a whisper. You saw me. I backed away. My legs touched the bed. I almost sat down but stopped myself. I looked toward the window. Still shut. Still locked. But the blinds were drawn again. And in the glass. Not on the other side, not outside. But in the reflection. She stood behind me. Her dress was dirtier now. Her smile wider. Her eyes black. Not hollow. Not soulless. Just full. Like ink. Like night. Like she'd been waiting behind the glass for too long and finally found a way through. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I just turned. There was no one there. But I knew. She was no longer at the window. She wasn't across the alley anymore. She was inside. I left the house that morning. Didn't pack. Didn't leave a note. Just locked the door and dropped the keys through the landlord's mail slot. I haven't gone back. And I don't look into windows after dark anymore. Especially if there's a reflection. Because sometimes, I still see her. Not watching. Smiling. I'll never forget that night. When you live alone in an old rented room, you get used to strange sounds. The wind whistling through a cracked window. Cats fighting on the roof. The occasional dripping from the bathroom tap, even though you've tightened it more times than you can count. But that night, something felt different. It was around 3 a.m. I had just fallen asleep, deep enough to be groggy, but light enough to wake at the slightest sound. And that's when I heard it. A knock at the door. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just slow. Measured. Like whoever was on the other side knew I was awake. At first I thought I was dreaming. But then it came again. Knock. Knock. My heart started beating faster. No one visits me at that hour. No one even knows I live here except one friend, and he was out of town on a business trip. I got up carefully, trying not to make any sound. I didn't turn on the lights. The hallway felt colder than usual. I approached the door and looked through the peephole. There was no one there. But the knocking. It didn't stop. I held my breath. Still no one in sight. But the knocking. It didn't stop. It continued, slowly, with long pauses between each knock. Almost polite. Knock. Knock. I stepped back from the peephole. My instincts told me not to open the door. Instead, I sat on the floor against the wall, in the dark, listening. After about 2 minutes, the knocking stopped. I waited another 10. Nothing. Finally, I gathered enough courage to switch on the hallway light and open the door, just a crack. The corridor was empty. But there, lying right at my doorstep, was something that hadn't been there before. A small envelope. No name. No address. Just a thin black string tied around it, like the kind you'd see in old letters from a war movie. I picked it up, brought it inside, and locked the door immediately. My hands were shaking. I placed the envelope on the table and stared at it, unsure if I should open it. But of course I did. Inside the envelope was a photograph. It was slightly faded, like it had been taken years ago. But it wasn't an old photo. It was me lying in my bed. The exact bed I had fallen asleep in that night. Same blanket, same pillow, same position. But I hadn't taken that picture. My breath caught in my throat. I turned the photo over with trembling fingers. There were only 2 words written in black ink. You moved. That was when I noticed. The window in the photo behind my bed, it was slightly open. I turned slowly toward my actual window. It was shut. But there, in the dust on the outside glass, was a handprint. And below it, a second envelope. I didn't sleep that night. I moved out the next morning. I never opened the second envelope. And I pray every night that whoever or whatever left it never comes looking for me again. I moved into the apartment in early spring. It was small. Just a second-floor studio in a half-forgotten part of town. Old wood floors, yellowed walls, cracks in the ceiling like thin spider webs. But it was cheap. And more importantly, it was quiet. I had just left a noisy share house, and I was desperate for silence, even if that silence came with creaking pipes and flickering hallway lights. On the day I moved in, I found something odd. A tall mirror, leaning against the far wall of the bedroom. I hadn't brought a mirror. The landlord didn't mention anything about one. And yet there it was, about 6 feet tall, dust-covered. Its silver frame chipped at the edges like something old and forgotten. The glass wasn't perfectly clear either. It was aged, slightly clouded near the corners, as if the past refused to let go. I thought about getting rid of it, but something made me stop. It wasn't beautiful, but it had presence. Wait. So I cleaned the dust off and left it standing, just where I found it, against the bedroom wall. That first night, I didn't think about it at all. I was too tired, too drained from moving boxes and furniture. I fell asleep early, deep and dreamless. The second night, I noticed something. Just as I was falling asleep, there was a sound, soft, like something tapping lightly against glass. I sat up, listened, but it didn't come again. I blamed the wind, or maybe the radiator. Old buildings made noise. That's what they did. Still, I found myself glancing at the mirror before turning off the light. Just a quick look, nothing strange. But the third night, something changed. It was around 2 a.m. I woke up thirsty and stumbled into the kitchen for water. The room was dark except for the faint street light bleeding through the blinds. As I walked past the mirror, I glanced at it, just out of habit, and froze. There was someone behind me, in the reflection. A boy. He looked no older than 10. Pale skin, dark, wet-looking hair. Eyes too wide, too empty. He wasn't moving. He just stood there, right behind me in the mirror. But when I spun around, no one was there. My chest tightened. I turned back to the mirror. It was empty. Just my reflection. Nothing else. I stood there a while, trying to convince myself I was tired. Seeing things. The light, the shadows, that's all. Eventually, I crawled back into bed, but I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about the boy, about the look in his eyes, blank, but watching, like he had all the time in the world. The next morning, I laughed it off, kind of, told myself I probably dreamed the whole thing. Still, I avoided looking into the mirror that day, which was strange. It felt like I didn't want to catch him again, didn't want to know if he was still there. That night, I left the hallway light on, just in case. At exactly 2 a.m., I woke up again. I wasn't thirsty, wasn't hot. Nothing disturbed me, except something had pulled me awake. I sat up, looked at the mirror from across the room. It was too dark to see clearly, but I could feel it. That cold, crawling sensation. The one you get when someone is watching you but you're alone, or think you are. I stared at the mirror for a long time. I didn't dare get out of bed, didn't want to get closer, and eventually, somehow, I fell asleep. But that was only the beginning. The boy wasn't gone. He was waiting, closer every time, and soon. He wouldn't stay in the mirror. The next few days blurred together. I kept the mirror where it was, still leaning against the bedroom wall, still silent, still waiting. I didn't see the boy again, not directly, but I felt something. The air in the room began to change, subtle, but real. It was colder near the mirror, only there, like the heat refused to touch that corner of the room. One night I tried to ignore it. I turned the mirror to face the wall, just to see if it helped. That night I slept better. No dreams. No waking up at 2 a.m. No sense of dread. I even laughed a little the next morning. I told myself, it's just a trick of the brain. Mirrors reflect more than light. They reflect fear too. But the calm didn't last. 3 nights later, I came home from work and found the mirror had moved. It was still in the bedroom, but no longer facing the wall. It had turned back around, facing the bed, like it wanted to see me. Or worse, like it wanted me to see what was inside. I stood frozen in the doorway for a full minute. I hadn't touched it. No one else had access to the apartment. There was no draft, no earthquake, no reason. I walked over slowly, carefully, afraid to look, but unable not to. And there, in the reflection, the boy was back, closer now, right behind where I would be if I stood in front of the mirror. Same pale skin, same dark, empty eyes. But this time, his mouth was open, not like a smile, more like a silent scream. Like he was trying to say something, but no sound would come out. I stepped back, my breath caught. I felt something crawl across the back of my neck. When I looked behind me, nothing. Of course, nothing. I covered the mirror that night, tossed a thick blanket over it and pushed a dresser in front of it, just to be sure. I didn't sleep, because at 2 a.m., I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. Not from the mirror this time, from the wall, right behind the dresser. 3 soft knocks, like a child asking to be let out. In the morning, I pushed the dresser aside. The blanket was still there, still covering the glass. But when I pulled it off, the boy was gone. Only the mirror, and me. I should have gotten rid of it. I know that now, but part of me didn't want to. Not because I liked it, but because I was starting to feel like it was part of the apartment. Like it had always been here. Like it belonged. And I didn't. Later that week, something new happened. I woke up to the sound of water dripping. Not the kitchen sink. Not the bathroom. It was coming from inside the mirror. I know how that sounds, but I swear, when I got up and stood in front of it, I heard it clearer. Drip, drip, drip. And the floor in the reflection, it was wet. Like someone had just stepped out of the rain. But my real floor? Bone dry. I took a deep breath, reached out, and touched the mirror's surface. It was cold, but not like glass. More like skin left out in the snow. I pulled my hand away quickly. There was condensation on the mirror now. A small circle where my fingers had been. And there, written in the fog, slowly appearing from inside the glass, was a word. Look. I stepped back, shaking. Didn't sleep that night. Didn't turn off the lights. Didn't close my eyes for more than a few seconds at a time. Every time I looked at the mirror, the word was still there, written from the inside. The next morning it was gone, completely clear. No sign it had ever been written at all. But the message was clear. He wanted me to keep watching, to see what was coming next. And deep down, I knew this wasn't just a boy, not anymore. Whatever he was, he had seen me. And now, he wasn't finished. I started sleeping on the couch, far from the mirror, far from that corner of the bedroom where the cold never left. But even then, he found ways to remind me, little things. At first, a door creaking open that I knew I had shut, a shadow flickering across the TV when it was turned off, footsteps, soft, light, across the floorboards at 2 a.m. Always 2 a.m. One night, I woke to the sound of breathing. Not mine. It was close. Wet. Shallow. Like lungs struggling underwater. I didn't move. Didn't even blink. It was right behind me. I told myself not to turn around. That if I didn't look, nothing would be there. But I did. Of course I did. There was nothing. Just a room. Dark. Still. But when I turned back toward the hallway, the mirror was there. It had moved. No longer in the bedroom. Now standing in the center of the hallway. How did it get there? It was heavy. Almost impossible to move alone. I didn't hear anything drag across the floor. But it was there. Facing me. Waiting. The reflection wasn't of the hallway. It was my bedroom. Exactly as I had left it. Except one thing. There was someone lying in my bed. Face turned toward the mirror. Blanket pulled to their chin. Staring straight out at me. I stepped closer. And that's when the person in the bed blinked. Not me. Not a reflection. Something else. Something that looked like me, but wasn't. I threw a blanket over the mirror, left it where it stood, didn't touch it, didn't move it. I slept in the stairwell that night, just to be away from it. The other tenants gave me strange looks the next morning, but no one asked. I started researching the building. It was old, yes, but there were no stories, no deaths, no murders, at least not public ones. But the mirror? I asked the landlord about it. He said it had been there when he bought the place over 15 years ago. Never moved it, never thought to. No one ever lived in that unit long. They always left within months. He didn't know why, didn't care. I should have left then, but part of me was hooked. I needed to know who the boy was, why he was in the mirror, why me. So I set up a camera, pointed directly at the mirror, let it record overnight. The next morning I checked the footage. Hours of silence, nothing, until 2:03 a.m. The screen flickered, just for a second, then static. The camera showed someone standing in front of the mirror, me, but I was asleep on the couch the whole night. I checked the timestamp. I hadn't moved, but on the video the version of me stared into the mirror, slowly leaned in, then vanished. No footsteps, no sound, just gone. The reflection stayed, alone, and in it, the boy appeared, just for a moment. He smiled again, then looked at the camera, directly at it, as if he knew I would watch later. That night I heard the tapping again, not from the mirror, from the window. I lived on the second floor. No balcony, no ledge, but there was a shadow outside the window, and it had no shape, just movement, pacing, waiting. I didn't sleep, didn't even close my eyes. When the sun came up, I finally looked out the window. No one was there, but on the glass, a handprint, small, like a child's, but there were 4 fingers, only 4. I packed my bags that morning. I told myself I was leaving for good, that I didn't care about the deposit, that I didn't care about finding a new place. I just wanted out, but something stopped me. One last time. I stood in front of the mirror. The glass was clean, no fog, no fingerprints, no boy, just my reflection, alone. I stared at it for a long time, studied it, looking for something out of place, a ripple, a delay, anything, nothing. And then, without warning, my reflection blinked, but I didn't. I froze. My heart skipped. My breath caught in my throat. My reflection blinked again, tilted its head, and smiled. It wasn't me, not anymore. Whatever was on the other side, it had been watching, learning, and now, it was good at pretending. I backed away, hands shaking. I turned, ready to leave, ready to run. And that's when I saw it. The door, my front door, it was gone. In its place, another mirror, same frame, same size. Now there were 2, one behind me, one in front, and in both reflections, the boy, standing still, watching, and then, they moved, at the same time, stepping forward, closer to the glass, their mouths opened, wide, too wide, their eyes rolled back, and they started screaming. But no sound came out, only silence, a thick, crushing silence that filled the room like water. I covered my ears even though there was nothing to hear. I fell to my knees, closed my eyes. I wanted to disappear, wanted to forget I'd ever found that damn mirror. When I opened my eyes again, everything was normal. One mirror, one door, no boy, no double, just me. I walked out, didn't pack, didn't lock the door. I never went back. Weeks passed. I moved into a new place. No mirrors. None. Not even in the bathroom. But sometimes I catch myself, avoiding reflections, shaving in the dark, turning off the phone screen before it lights up my face. Because I don't trust it anymore. Any of it. And last night, it happened again. I was walking past a storefront. Late. The windows were dark. The shop was closed, and the glass reflected the empty street behind me. Except, there was a boy, standing just behind my shoulder, smiling.